So, as you know, my name is Kelly, and I'm going to talk to you about just write that letter. How many times in life have you thought of someone or a situation and you've kind of battled with yourself over, God, should I write them? Should I call them? Should I send that email? Should I knock on their door? So I'm here to talk to you today about the impact of that small action. So we're gonna try and do this. My first time doing PowerPoint in a long time. So I was born in a very small town in Minnesota to a small town doctor and a stay-at-home wife. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And by all accounts, my life, my upbringing can be described largely as unremarkable. We were a no-name family in the middle of the Midwest. Midwest nowhere is what I often call it. We're connected to no one important, and we don't have any major standing outside of the community that I grew up in. So in Waseca, nobody knows me. However, so this is a picture, kind of a map. I grew up in Sleepy Eye. That's where I was born, and that's me. I think I was probably 4 at that time. So when I was about 5, my dad enlisted in a mission program through Wycliffe Bible Translators. And he flew to remote areas of Mexico to help treat and heal the indigenous people that lived there, assist with documenting the language, spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ through word and deed. And as I would find over the years, my parents secretly sponsored children from around the world through World Vision, and they supported missionaries in many different fields around the world. And why did they do that? That's always kind of a good question to ask, is why would you do that? Because it's their role in the Great Commission. And when God asks you to do something, you do it, even if it doesn't make sense. So fast forward about 30 years, I woke up on New Year's Day 2010, and I was feeling like, man, there has to be more to life than this. There has to be more to life than going to work and doing the dishes and the laundry and paying the bills and raising a child and going to bed and doing it again the next day. There has to be more. There surely has to be more than doing that day in and day out until you eventually die. Is this the totality? This can't be God's grand vision of existence. It can't be just this. So that's when God spoke to my heart and said, just knit, and I'll do the rest. That was the message, just knit. It's a thing I knew how to do. Having gone through 15 years of some pretty traumatic experiences, which I won't get into, but barely surviving off of my single income to support my husband and our then 6-year-old daughter. Trust and obey was not something that I was good at, nor was it something that was like, yeah, I'll just trust and obey. I've got it. It's great. My years of struggle had taught me to do exactly the opposite, fight and be defensive. So I reluctantly began to knit. I had no plan in mind, none at all. But I had wanted to learn to knit socks. They're kind of cute. So I started with kids' socks because they're small and they're attainable. But soon after, opportunities came up that I was able to sell those socks. And the more I sold the socks, I decided that I was going to give that money to a charity. I didn't know what one. I hadn't made a decision. And then people heard what I was doing, and they donated yarn. So then I was no longer buying yarn. It was given to me, so more money was being made. And it was baby hats and blankets and socks and booties and crocheted things and knit things, and you name it, I probably made it. Excuse me. And from that single action of just knit, came that deluge of support and faith from other people. They didn't know what I was doing either, but they supported me in that. And it gave me a conduit to start changing lives, both here and those who were receiving the finances for their various missions. And then through this process is when I learned about the Hermit Kingdom, also known as North Korea. So what I just want to share with you a little bit what I learned during that time. So up here on the left, you see Minnesota and North Korea. They are geographically the same size. North Korea is the same size as Minnesota, but it has 5 times the people. So, that's kind of something to think about, that it's not a huge nation, and it's also not nothing. It's equal to us. It is, so you can see in this lower right, North Korea is largely non-arable land. It is mountainous, so they cannot farm it the way we would here. The lower left is a man, oxen-pulled cart. That's a field. The upper right, people farming the fields by hand. Kenneth will tell you a little bit about that experience, what that's like. The government controls everything and distributes what it sees fit to the people, which is not enough for them to survive on. This is a little difficult, so I'm sorry if people are kind of set off by that photo, but in the 90s, so 1994 to 1998, a devastating series of famines, droughts, floods, and many political issues caused the death of an estimated 3 million people. 15% of their population died, leaving countless orphaned and abandoned children. These are little children in the lower right corner. Those who spoke out against what was happening, who spoke out against their government, and were caught, they were caught breaking the law or were believed to be Christians. They were imprisoned in labor camps or executed on the site, oftentimes publicly in front of their families. Recently, there were 30 middle school children executed in front of their peers because they consumed Western media. It still happens today. Many times, entire families will face this fate, and under the 1950 law of the 3 generations, if your family's imprisoned, the next 3 generations will stay in prison, never having committed a crime, but guilty by blood. There is no escape. There's no hope. It's very, very oppressive and scary. So the degree of violence, absolute power and control, has forced the people of North Korea to comply with their oppressors or risk dying escape to attain a shred of freedom. So in 2012, this I want you to see. This is a Google Earth photograph. You can get on Google Earth and see this. The upper corner is Kaechang, a concentration camp. The bottom is Pukchang. Those are only 2 of 10 concentration camps. They are hard labor camps. There's torture there. There's beatings. The people in the lower left are digging rocks. The upper right is a guard. They are brutal and beyond anything you can even fathom. So you can view them from Google Earth. I would challenge you to do it. You will be surprised. But in 2012, my mother asked me if I had heard about the American imprisoned in North Korea. Upon immediate internet searching, I became aware of the case of Kenneth Bay and the American minister and missionary who had been arrested and imprisoned. I soon learned the basic circumstances of what had happened, his life, his family, and the sentence he had been given, which was 15 years hard labor in one of those camps. I felt God urging for me to reach out to his family and friends who were managing his Facebook page and offer to volunteer and help them. I have 2 degrees, one in commercial art and illustration, one in marketing. And so I used what I had to try and help and support them as best I could. I was incredibly nervous about doing this, as I'm far more of an introvert than my mother. Where is she at? Than my mother or my siblings. But I felt it was important. And so I wrote that email. Through his family and the Facebook page, I discovered a letter writing campaign to Kenneth. So through a series of channels, you could submit a letter to him in prison, and it would go from online to someone who knew the prison system well because they had also been imprisoned, and then it would go through an embassy and another channel, and then he could receive these messages. But not all of the messages written would make it to him. A lot of them had to be removed, but mine made it through. You know, again, as an introverted person, I hesitated and asked myself, was this even the right thing to do? You know, I didn't know him personally. We'd never met. I didn't know his family, really. Was it going to be strange for some lady in the Middle West, in the Midwest, to be writing to a guy in a prison? Like, you know, is it going to be weird? But, you know, when God tells you to do something, you do it. This was my example, Matthew 25, 34 to 40. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance. The kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? When were you thirsty and we gave you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and invite you in? Needing clothes and we clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you?" And this is the peace. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And that was it. That was the answer. So it became apparent that it was the call of Christ for me to write that letter, to send the encouragement and do the work before me. And as God had promised, do the work and I will handle the rest. Every action centered around my short prayer of, "Lord, thy will be done, not mine, but yours, now and forever." And that was every single knit piece, every single piece of artwork, every single post. That was the prayer. So today, so through that time, we were able to do, these are just a couple of the pieces that we did to raise awareness about Kenneth when he was in prison. And then on November 8th, 2014, Kenneth was miraculously, we had no idea it was happening. He was released and returned home, and I woke up on the morning, so there's his release on the left, that middle one says, "Thank you, Kelly Sadler." I woke up to that after a very difficult experience that I was going through. That was one of the best gifts I've ever received, to be honest with you. I finally met Kenneth, so up in the upper right, about 6 months later. Flew out to Seattle, and we met for the very first time. So I didn't know him until that moment when we met in a Korean restaurant. So, yeah. So today, I'm the US-based manager for the Kenneth's Foundation, which is New Korea Foundation International. We're an organization that saves and supports North Korean refugees that are living in various places. We call it other countries because we can't identify where they are, but they live in South Korea, and some are here in the US, some in Europe. So we help them, and honestly, you know, again, being Kelly, nobody from the middle of Midwest nowhere, there's no way that I could have done this on my own. This is 100% God. And it's because I said, "Yes, Lord," when he said, "I need you to do." And so I had to step outside my comfort zone and listen to God and do the work. And today, I'm fighting for the North Korean people and living out Matthew 25, 24 to 40, or 25, 24 to 40. You know, and the reason that I would be here telling you anything today is that I want to encourage you to write that letter, whatever that is. Send that email. Get involved in that thing that God has placed in your heart, whatever that is. The impact that you can make is greater than you will ever know. I never imagined that this is what we would be doing, that this is what my life would be, because I wrote a letter, right? Your life is going to be transformed, and your work is going to transform the lives of others. You know, according to Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve that God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect. That's all I have for you tonight. So we have just a little video, 2 minutes long. I'll have you run that. And then I'll have Kenneth, I'll introduce him for you.
Lately, it feels like there's so much noise in our everyday lives. We find ourselves inundated with excessive work, the news of wars and rumors of coming conflicts, tumultuous environmental changes, social media, political upheaval and debates. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed, questioning what can be done if everything is taking top priority. For North Koreans, daily life is filled with hunger, poverty, preventable illnesses, arrest, torture, and death every day for speaking up against their leaders, inhumane practices, inequality, and their faith. Over 26 million are living under an authoritarian government that has stamped out individuality, freedom, faith, and above all, hope. Due to the mass silencing of the people, very few in this world will ever hear their voices crying out for freedom. But you can change that. Taking a single action can start a wave of movement. Through the work of New Korea Foundation International, we are raising awareness of the plight of the people of North Korea. We are providing safety, support, and healing through medical and mental health care, supporting educational initiatives, networking with agencies to help build a collaborative future led by the freed people, and sharing the gospel with all who we come in contact with. All you have to do is say yes. Say yes to advocate, volunteer, and financially support the critical work we do in the mission field to help transform lives without hope. Visit us today to see how you can be that hope for North Korea.